The president has just announced a cash transfer of $60 billion, $200,000 for each household. This is a major part, considering in this year's budget we only have $300 billion coming in from the oil industry, and a $60 billion transfer has been announced.
Cassie Henry, DPI. Dr. Jagdeo, stemming from the president's announcement of the 200,000 one-off cash grant, could you be able to say in no uncertain terms what would constitute a household in this situation?
We have had this issue always with the definition of the household. And in the census has 264,000 heads of households. But we believe the census, did not capture everyone. And you do have in a household, people say, I cook my own pot. This is where it gets tricky. We are looking now, I don't want to get into great detail, but we have about 200 and maybe 20-something thousand people who pay electricity rates. They have their electricity bill. That excludes people who are on GPL database. That excludes part of 7, because Bartica N, they would be on the base, 8, 9, and some of the other riverine areas on the coast. So it excludes some communities. Clearly, if you know someone is paying their electricity bill, that is going to be a household. They're paying electricity bill for household. We'd have to use the data from GPL, GWI, and then go through a process. So if, for example, I have multiple buildings and I am paying 5 meters, so I'm not going to get 5 households, we clean up that list. So if you have 5 meters, you're not going to get that. But assuming I'm paying for 5 tenants now and 5 different groups, the 5 tenants would then can claim a different, that when we go through the first list and through GPL and use, that's a verified database, these 5 tenants are eligible to claim as separate households. We're working it to try to see as far as possible how we can make it fair without people ripping off the system to the husband comes in and then the wife comes and separate things, because that's how it happens all the time. But we assume that 2 persons will be paying the electricity bill is 1 person, and that's the person who is in the household maybe doing it. So we still have to work it through the great detail, but we believe we can do it. And then in communities in the hinterland, what happens is easier there because they're smaller communities, so we have a process of verification by the 2 shouts. They have, each of the villages have a list of individuals and they verify, they sign off on the households. So then we get the names, you got the check in the names of those people, because it would be by check in some areas, almost most of the areas it will be by check. And so the aim is, once it's a legitimate household. We had some of this when the COVID grant came out, because what happened is that we did the primary households first and then we went to secondary households. The primary households, it's easy to do because you have an address. So we say 1 property, and for rural areas this is more workable because a single person may live in a home. In the urban setting where people live multiple, like families may live in a home because they rent. So the easiest thing is to often go to a house. You have, say, 300 houses in Pleasant, you pay out to the 300 houses first, and then people can claim maybe if 2 families are in the house, so then you adjust it. So that's what happened in the COVID grant. Primary households they tackled first, then they moved to secondary households. So it would be heavily scrutinized with the Auditor General there too.
Okay, thank you. So you just mentioned some heavy scrutiny there. I wanted to know what specific system the government is going to be putting in place to ensure that each household that is supposed to get a cash grant actually gets a cash grant.
Yes, but the thing is that it depends on, so the idea is that each would get it. I'm just telling you how we want to go through it. That verification, you can move fast through the verified numbers, like people who have bills. So if you have a bill, then that easily assessed. Then you'd have to send people to check, because if everybody claims and you have 300,000 claims too outside of the 300, we'd have to verify it because we know based on the population that 260, 300,000 households, that's the range that we have. So the intent is every household. So already that is what we want, but it has to be a verified process. You can't just walk in and say, I'm a household and then get it too. You have to go through the verification process. I think the first 200,000 would be easy because those will have verified database. And then maybe another 40 something thousand from the hinterland will be easy because it's easier in village settings and you can get those done. And then the secondary households, that's when we start getting the claims. We'll open up a process maybe for claims. But we're still working with the Auditor General and the others to make sure that the system is done. I'm just telling you the thinking that we were behind our heads about how to ensure that everyone gets it and that it's not and that it's verified. And this is how we started off looking at databases from different systems.
Dr. Jagdeo, Saskia Warwick from NCN. Just another follow-up on the 200,000 all-one-off cash grant. As it relates to non-nationals, will there be any requirement, for example?
Non-nationals now eligible. These are Guyanese families, Guyanese households, not non-national. If you're not a Guyanese household, getting this money.
That clarification.
Yes, Guyanese-headed household.
Trishelle Silvers, Guyana Times. Just another follow-up to the $200,000 per household. What systems will be put in place to ensure that persons who are renting have access to that money rather than their landlords having access to it?
Yeah, the thing is, that is why if they're paying electricity bill. So we wanted to use electricity as a crucial thing. So if you have, for example, the landlord has 4 properties and he's paying the electricity bill, he would not be eligible for 4 grants. That is what? He will be eligible for 1 grant. So if we have the tenants now, so we would allow, if we can prove that people are renting, you show that you're renting, then that's an easy way of showing that you have your own household. Renters who are living by themselves, they have their own households. You're running your own, you're cooking your own pot, basically. That's the thing that people say. A lot of people, I hope they're not going to move into a place and say, look, I just rent for this week. How Guyanese are creative. I just rented for this week. Next week, they just give up the rental property. It's not an easy task when you're dealing with large numbers of people and you have 5% of them who are looking to cheat the system. Deliberately set out to cheat. We're not starry-eyed about this, And these people who try to cheat, they come from every party. APNU, AFC, PPP, they're all. They don't have, there's one thing they're united about. They're trying to beat the system, right? So we have to watch out for everyone, whether they're PPP or APNU or AFC.
Dr. Jagdeo, just one more question about the cash grant. Some persons would have expressed concerns about this causing hyperinflation. Could you say how the government analyzed the situation and came to the conclusion that 200,000 was feasible?
Yes, so we looked at this. We believe the economy has the capability of absorbing it. We wanted to look at tax measures to help people, but our experience with tax breaks for the business community and with the hope that they would pass on the benefits has not been a great one. When we remove some of the taxes sometimes from like food items, we didn't necessarily have the pass-through effect to people. So that is why we opted in this case to just give them directly. We believe that given the scale of our economy, we can absorb this. We have a $22 billion US economy now, so we believe it could be absorbed.